For centuries, the question of what happens after biological death has been walled off inside theology and philosophy. Once the physical body breaks down, the observer is gone, making the experience inherently untestable. The scientific method relies entirely on falsifiability. A hypothesis must have a testable boundary, but death is a strictly one-way process. You cannot extract data from an experience you cannot return from. In an attempt to bridge this gap, independent researcher Dr. Naresh Kumar published a paper titled Life After Death Viewed Through Scientific Perspectives. Kumar outlines what he calls the energy survival theory. Instead of relying on metaphysical faith, this model takes the concept of reincarnation and forces it to strictly obey the classical laws of physics. To parse this theory, we have to discard the ideas of life as creation and death as destruction. Under this framework, life and death are simply mechanical state changes occurring within a perfectly closed physical system. This diagram shows the universe as a closed system, where no energy enters or escapes. Inside, the temporary biological body is a self-life energy form, or SLEF. Accompanying this is the individual self-energy form, or ISEF, a subtle energy holding a creature's consciousness. The entire life cycle is dictated by the interaction of these two states. Birth occurs when an ISEF subtle energy transforms into a physical SLEF. Death is the exact reverse, where the physical SLEF reverts entirely back to an ISEF. This means consciousness is not treated as a biological byproduct generated by the brain. It is modeled as a distinct, independent thermodynamic energy state that exists before the physical host is formed and persists after it breaks down. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. Applying this to Kumar's model, the absolute sum of all ISEF and SLF states in the universe must remain eternally constant. This introduces an immediate mathematical paradox. If the total energy of the system cannot increase, how is the human population constantly growing on Earth? This scale illustrates the solution. To reconcile the boom, the biological pool expands to encompass all living creatures. The rise in humans is offset by decreases elsewhere, requiring a reduction in non-human earthly species or extraterrestrial life forms to keep the thermodynamic equation balanced. The ISEF subtle energy possesses zero inherent species loyalty. It transitions fluidly across the biological spectrum, binding to whatever physical host environment is available at the exact moment of its release. Therefore, the human population spike does not violate energy conservation laws. It is simply a localized reallocation of the universe's strictly fixed energy budget. The second law of thermodynamics dictates that total entropy, or the measure of disorder in a closed system, must always increase over time. Biological life presents a highly organized, complex structure. This raises the question of whether the physical life cycle actually violates this mandatory slide into chaos. This diagram illustrates Maximilian Katutu's thought experiment, a single human inside a sealed mirrored box with an external gauge tracking total systemic entropy. The body functions as a 100-watt infrared radiator, actively homogenizing temperature gradients inside the box, causing the entropy gauge to tick upward. Metabolism compounds the effect. The act of breathing continuously converts complex sugar and oxygen molecules into a chaotic mixture of heated carbon dioxide and moisture. Even at rest, shedding skin and sweat drives disorder higher. When the physical SLEF dies, the process accelerates. Microorganisms hijack the organic matter, breaking it into a pressurized gas mixture that pushes the box's entropy to its absolute maximum value. The entire lifespan of a biological entity, including its decay, operates as a highly efficient entropy generator. The continuous cycle of physical life and death actively drives the universe toward maximum disorder. At any given microsecond, the universe contains an absolute abundance of biological meeting fluids. These chemical mixtures sit in a state of constant readiness, waiting for a catalyst. Because these raw environments are ubiquitous across billions of species and planets, an ISEF released at the exact moment of physical death experiences zero delay. The freed subtle energy travels with instantaneous velocity, slamming into a waiting mixture and converting it into a biological reaction to form a new SLEF. The rigid mechanics of this transfer leave no room for a transitional phase. There is no thermodynamic waiting room or purgatory for subtle energy. Due to this instant transformation efficiency, traditional ghosts or lingering spirits are a physical impossibility under the energy survival model. The energy has already been reallocated to a new physical host. The paper attributes reported paranormal manifestations entirely to pareidolia. Pareidolia is a psychological phenomenon where the human mind incorrectly perceives familiar patterns, like faces or voices in random sensory noise. A truly closed thermodynamic loop requires zero systemic waste and zero hesitation. By treating consciousness as conserved energy, the framework renders the paranormal mathematically obsolete. This schematic maps the relationship between subtle and physical energies. The top blue disk is the permanent mass of subtle energy, each X an eternal identity. The dark cylinder below is the physical universe. Silver cords string these sequential lives to one identity across time. In this architecture, your current physical body is not an isolated event. It is merely the latest coordinate plotted on the vertical axis of your permanent energy signature. This strict mechanical view of reincarnation intersects with the field research of Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia. Stevenson extensively cataloged thousands of cases where young children possessed highly detailed, verifiable past life memories. If these silver cords permanently tether our identities from one life to the next, it begs an obvious question. Why doesn't every single human retain the memories of their past lives? The answer relies on the thermodynamic balancing mechanism, the subtle energy transitions across all species boundaries to ensure the universe's total energy remains fixed. If a human's immediate previous physical form was an insect, a wild animal, or non-human entity, the memory data transferred by the subtle energy is biologically unintelligible to the new human brain architecture. Stevenson's cataloged cases represent a vast statistical minority. They are the rare instances where the subtle energy transferred directly from a human host to another human host, allowing the intricate, stored memory data to be perfectly decoded by the new brain. The energy survival theory remains untestable, bound by the one-way barrier of physical death. Yet it proves an incredibly compelling point. Even the most deeply profound metaphysical mysteries can be rigorously mapped using the cold, unbreakable architecture of classical physics.